Welcome to tonight's tale, a fairy tale theater podcast. We're going through every episode of Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater in alphabetical order. I'm your host, Emily. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm joined by my co-host, Eric.
It's me, Eric, from New York.
And tonight we are joined by our co-host, Caitlin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Caitlin, where are you from?
I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Dear listeners, Caitlin is someone I've known my entire life. Is that about true, Kate?
Well, the entirety of my life, anyway. Emily is my big sister.
Yep. Very happy to have my little sis on tonight's podcast. She remembers when I first discovered Fairy Tale Theater because she was sitting there right next to me.
It's been memorable.
Tonight we are reviewing the episode, which has always been my personal favorite, The Princess and the Pea. Eric, do you have the background information on this one?
This episode aired on April 16th, 1984. It was the 10th episode of the entire series. The second episode in season 3. It was actually filmed August 15th, 1983 to August 19th, 1983. Directed by Tony Bill and written by a perennial favorite of fairy tale theater, Mark Curtis and Rod Ash.
Always. What's the first thing that springs to mind when you think of this episode?
I mean, come on. It's the Liza of it all. Hello.
Absolutely.
The queen. Liza with a Z. I don't know. It's so cool to see that Shelley got her for this. She was just at the height of her fame, and she was, she's just so awesome. And she hasn't done very many film projects. The fact that she did this one is a big one. I just love seeing her in it because honestly, it's what makes the episode for me. I mean, I love Beatrice Straight. I do really think it's a solid script and everything about it, but Liza makes this episode 100%.
Completely agree. Caitlin?
Yeah, Liza, I remember thinking this was one of the first episodes where I realized what a strong female lead was like, because dang, if she didn't get her way, like the entire episode. So that's what I remember.
I love that. I hadn't quite thought of it that way, but I totally see it. Yeah, you cannot talk about this episode without talking about Liza. This was when I first heard of Liza, and I've been a lifelong fan of hers ever since. One of the first things that I think of with this episode was the art direction. I remember it being black and white, and the black and white sets and costumes. This was one where I really loved the art direction. Very sharp and clever dialogue. I think of this one as being one of the rare cases where it's a pretty short fairy tale. If I recall correctly, they stretched it out, but they did a really good job of stretching it out, unlike some of the other episodes we've reviewed. So, how familiar are you with the source material, the original fairy tale, Eric?
I remember reading it a long time ago. I do remember what you said, that it's very, very short.
Yeah.
So it's not really a strong fairy tale, literary-wise, but I think they did a great job with it.
Absolutely. Caitlin?
I think they took a really interesting kind of character development left turn that wasn't in the originals, where it was just like, and here a princess showed up and they proved she was a real princess and everything went well. And it's like, no, here's what the princess wanted, and here's what she was about, and she just kind of decided to stay.
The fairy tale is about a page long. It's a pretty quick read from what I remember. And yeah, in the original fairy tale, like you said, it's pretty much she shows up, she proves she's a princess, the end. This fairy tale theater episode, we really kind of got to know each of the characters, not just the princess, but we got to know the prince, we got to know the king and queen. They were all fleshed out really well and very strongly, I thought.
I don't know I'd say that about the king.
No, I was more talking about the queen.
Yeah. No, everyone else, but the king was present.
Well, we got to know the king. There just wasn't a lot to know about him. So starting our recap, we begin with our introduction by Shelley. She walks in from the rain. She's got her hair a little damp.
Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Welcome to Fairy Tale Theater. Join us for tonight's tale about a lonesome prince who finds his true princess through the help of a fool and a small green vegetable. The Princess and the Pea.
I loved it. I thought she looked beautiful as always, but I kind of liked the touch with the wet hair. Like she just came in from a rainstorm.
I love red hair Shelley.
Was she red-haired or was she blonde here?
Like a dirty blonde, like a strawberry blonde.
Maybe, yeah. So she's on the set where Liza later appears, and that's a scene straight from the fairy tale.
Yes, it is, except in the fairy tale, the king is the one that answers the door. But I think they did it differently in this because they wanted a whole moment. They did a little differently.
Yeah, I'm okay with that change. So after Shelley's introduction, we get the theme music. And this has always been my favorite of the fairy tale theater themes. This one and Dancing Princesses, I always thought had the best music.
I was humming it all day after my rewatch.
I had it as my ringtone for years. I should probably switch it back. It's so cheerful. It's a very jolly, hummable melody. I love the music here. Very playful. I thought it set the mood very well. And we get our opening scene, which is in a museum.
I had completely forgotten about the museum part. Completely.
It's the only fairy tale theater episodes that shows a scene in modern day. You notice that?
I hadn't
Like modern day, quote unquote, because it was the 80s, but
Well, yeah, but
I hadn't noticed that, but I think you're right.
yeah, very cool. It was just it was a couple's visiting a museum in the 80s, very 80s, with the shoulder pads and the hair and all of it.
the dress.
Yes, the dress, all of it. I love Beatrice Straight in this. It's great.
I liked her skirt, even if it didn't match her blouse completely.
Seriously, you looked at that?
Yeah, I noticed. Okay, so it starts in a museum, and this I do remember being a little nod to the original fairy tale, because I remember the original fairy tale mentioning a museum, and it does. And you said the pea was put in a museum, and it's probably still there unless someone stole it.
I'd like to point out you and I have been in the museum with the Princess and the Pea in Copenhagen.
Yes, we have. Yep. And we kept telling our dad that we could feel the pea. And he's going, sure, girls.
No, it does. It does say that about the museum in the story. I didn't realize that. I'm looking at the story now.
Well, of course I remember that because I've been to the museum. Kate and I are half Danish, so we went to the Hans Christian Andersen house in Denmark. And
Oh, I guess it wasn't Copenhagen. That must have been Odense.
yeah, I think it was Odense.
Okay, whatever. I was like 7.
We remember the mattresses and the pea better than the town. We have Pat McCormick as the king, playing the man in the museum. Beatrice Straight, one of my favorite dramatic actresses. She plays Queen Veronica, but here she's just the lady in the museum. And Tim Kazurinsky, who later plays the fool, is the museum guard. Now, Pat McCormick, I had to look up because I'm not that familiar with his work. It turns out he was mostly a comedy writer. He wrote for Get Smart, which I'm very impressed by. I love that show. Beatrice Straight, I remember her best from
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist is the big one, yes. And she won the Oscar for Network, of course. Very, very great dramatic actress. Tim Kazurinsky was a SNL alumni. He's another one I'm not too familiar with, but I really enjoyed his performance here. So we've got the museum guard. His big thing is telling everyone not to touch the glass, but they do see the pea and they ask about the story.
Excuse me, sir. What is this?
It's a pea.
Told you so.
Why on earth would anyone put a pea in a museum?
Because it's old and it's famous, that's why. Don't touch the glass.
Oh, well, why is it famous?
Well, if you really want to know, I'll tell you all about it.
You really don't have to.
I'd like to hear.
Good. See, once upon a time, many, many years ago... Hey, don't touch the glass. You want to hear the story? Don't touch the glass.
He gives us our introduction to the king, the queen, and the fool. And we cut to our palace set and we see the fool trying to entertain the king and queen.
I love the art direction on this. I think you said this, Emily. I think the art direction is great with the blacks and the whites and the silver. And that is also the same exact set that Shelley uses for the CBS Fox promo where she's surrounded by all the books
Oh, I forgot
and
about
she
that.
sits on the silver throne. That's the exact set she uses. But yeah, so we meet everyone. We meet Beatrice Straight, who is now once again used. She's used as Queen Veronica. We have Pat McCormick as King Federico. And we have Tim Kazurinsky, who is the Fool, with his little jester costume, which I love. So cute. Which he always wears. He doesn't wear anything else. He never doesn't have the hat on. And then we meet Tom Conti as Prince Richard.
Hello, Mother. Hello, Father.
He irritates me. Like, I get it. I get his whole spiel that he's supposed to be like quirky and weird. But like, it's a little much. It's a little much for me.
Okay. Kate, your thoughts on Tom
It's
Conti?
a little grating.
Oh my God, that's an abusive family. Was my first thought when I saw them. Like, they are so mean to everyone.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he is very, you just kind of want to smack Tom Conti in his opening line. He's just like, shut up, kid.
Hello,
He is the classic spoiled prince.
Okay, see, my take was completely different. And I remember not loving his performance. It was like the one thing that wasn't perfect in my memory. But when I did the rewatch, I really appreciated his performance. He is all over that set. He's laying on the stairs. He's just so miserable. There's literally a court jester, and he couldn't care less. Yeah, he's chewing the scenery, but it worked for me.
He's so miserable. He makes the rest of us miserable too.
It just seemed like, what's the word? It seemed kind of like a
annoying.
Oh, like, it was so over the top. It was kind of meant to be. On my rewatch, I kind of thought it was almost a commentary on royalty in general, because the royals are so spoiled. Queen Veronica is so spoiled. She's bossing around that poor servant. Oh, Charlie Dell played the servant. We didn't mention him yet.
Oh my God, one of our favorites from Fairy Tale Theater.
Oh, yeah. He was in a bunch of episodes. I think my favorite of his names was Arturo and his band of married cellists from Cinderella. He was in a bunch, but I loved him here. He might have had maybe 2 lines, but he was in almost every scene.
He was in 4 episodes altogether.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. We also meet another perennial. We'll meet him shortly as well.
Yes, I know who you're thinking of, but just this scene, I knew it was coming, and I still cracked up when Beatrice Straight took a wine bottle and cracked it over Charlie Dell's head. I burst out laughing. I still found it funny how she abuses that poor guy, and she doesn't even notice.
Yeah, she's miserable. She's pretty miserable, but it's really actually funny the way she does it. Her acting is like very well done. I just feel like Tom Conti is like he's just too much. Like, I understand the overacting, but like, she does the whole nasty, doesn't care about anyone, like that kind of thing, where he's like just kind of like the emo annoying prince.
Well, emo, that is a wonderful description for him.
Right?
And
right?
The thing I love about Beatrice is the way she plays Queen Veronica is that she is she has all this coldness, but she doesn't even see it. She just kind of glides right on past this whole I'm, potentially abusive to like, this is like how normal is. And I love it.
I love it too, but you were saying earlier she's miserable. I did not get that impression at all. She's very much status quo. This is my role and I'm gonna do it. And she doesn't.
The part where she goes, I so love working with my hands. It's like, wow, I believe her that.
Yeah.
I believe she meant that.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, this could be seen as kind of a commentary on royalty. So out of touch.